Hello, I'm joined by Vulindlela Mkandla, the founder of the Zimbabwe Educational Trust. Could you tell me a brief history of the trust? Why was it founded?
Zimbabwe Educational Trust was founded in the 80s, soon after Zimbabwe got its independence. It was founded because there was a need at that time. The government had gone ahead and built many secondary schools around the country, and they were very good. There were so many schools that came up which showed how keen they were about education. However, in the process of building these schools, they forgot to plan ahead for post-secondary. It was realized that there were so many children who completed their secondary education, but they were not able to advance this education because there were no facilities for them to advance. Now, then, at the time I was already here in the UK, and I had noticed that there were many universities and colleges within the country, and I thought, well, with so many colleges and universities, it might be possible for the authorities to allow some of these children who have completed their secondary to advance their education in this country. A thought came about setting up a trust.
So could you give me an idea of the scale of the operation? How many students did you enable to come and study in the UK?
Well, there were many students because they comprised of students who came to do HNDs. There were students who came to do higher HNDs. There were students who came to do first degrees. And there were students who came to do master's degrees. Unfortunately, these children, you see, or these Zimbabwean nationals, shall I say, were not able to go back to Zimbabwe because the country was not, or the conditions within the country were not conducive. But of course, there are many that were found it very difficult to get documents to remain within the country, and of course, some of them had to go back to Zimbabwe. But one or two students, they had to be forced, you see, to go back to Zimbabwe because they were found without the proper documents to remain within the country, which was really quite a disappointing affair.
The trust has moved away from bringing students to study in the UK, hasn't it?
Yes. When we realized in 2002 that the immigration control was becoming very strict, we had to think of ways of how we could help within the Zimbabwe itself, seeing that our program of bringing these students within the country was getting frustrated. I remember we tried to bring some children, about 15 children who had got places within the universities and colleges, but they were all refused the entry. And so we thought, well, it was high time we devoted or we focused on Zimbabwe itself with the projects in there. And so we asked the Charity Commission if they could help us redraft our objectives in order to include an objective that will allow us to support educational charitable projects within Zimbabwe.
So what exactly is the work that your trust does in Zimbabwe?
Luckily, we came across a charity called the Trinity Project, which helps students, children who have no birth certificates. They assist them to obtain these birth certificates. What we do, we have to fundraise and obtain some funding in order to give them, and they can do the work that they need to do. Because if the children in Zimbabwe have no birth certificate, they find it difficult to remain in school. Sometimes to the extent that they may not be allowed to write public exams, and may not be allowed to benefit from the assistance that is given by the government to people like orphans. We have been able to obtain a grant from the Department for International Development, which we send periodically to Zimbabwe in small amounts, so that they use this this money to help these children.
So you spoke about birth certificates and the lack of having a birth certificate preventing children from being able to study in Zimbabwe. Are there any other main problems that children come up against when they try and access the education system?
The common one is the lack of fees. There are many families who are in poverty, and as a result, you see, the children will not be able to go to school. And that I think is one of the major factors that affect the children going to school.
It's very much the belief of this trust that education is a way out of poverty. Could you elaborate on this?
Education is the doorway to everything that people need to do. And our mission statement for helping within Zimbabwe is to support communities within Zimbabwe in their efforts to keep children in school and out of poverty.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.